Good evening, everyone. We are back again tonight. I am Jean Rojas, and with me are Bea Corsino as moderator, co-moderator, Ruel Jimenez, and Robert Salvador as the IT technical team. I'd like you to know that both distinguished gentlemen serve as PCC board members. Tonight's event is the fourth in a series on building young Filipino Canadians' resilience through entrepreneurship. If you missed the sessions in the last 3 days, just scroll down below the PCC Facebook page and you would find the recorded videos of the past events. You would find these videos quite useful as they contain a number of practical tips and insights in starting a business. If you haven't done so, I encourage you to check them out. You may have questions or comments during the course of this session. Please feel free to post them on the comment section below. This event would run for about 1 hour and would be recorded and uploaded later on in the PCC's learning management system. By participating in this event, you consent that your name or your image might be captured in our recording. Tonight, we are so privileged to have with us as guest a person who defines his own professional standards. He's a Filipino-Canadian portrait, fashion, and commercial photographer. He was born and raised here in Canada. He considers photography as his simultaneous escape from reality and reality itself. This mindset enabled him to defy the realities and challenges that we are all encountering due to the COVID-19 pandemic. He started out in photography by primarily shooting street, fashion, and editorial photos. Today, he shoots pretty much everything and anything. He shoots more commercial work as of late, whether it be food, beverage, and real estate, and now much more work on film. His main focus right now is to create stronger portraits, to focus more on the subjects themselves, their story, their past and future, their very being versus on what they wear, and then create a stronger connection and resonance with them. A lot of his inspiration is pulled from classical artists such as Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Caravaggio, and Goya. But most of it comes from, guess what? The movies. A goal of many of his shots is to make them look like movie stills. If you were to put subtitles at the bottom of the photo, it would feel like a scene from a movie. He always thinks of his own art as a work in progress, always finding the beauty of all this. And to him, it is always about the journey, never about the end goal. It sounds almost poetic, isn't it? So, friends, let us welcome our very own from Ottawa, Yoni Sambo.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Yoni. Thanks so much.
Sounds much better when you read it versus when I read that artist bio.
Yeah, I know. It does sound poetic, doesn't
Sounds
it?
pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. And it's really coming from an artist. So from a visual artist. And when you wrote it down for us, I thought that it's really very poetic. So poetry in words. So Yoni, let's start off by asking this question. Tell us about the environment that you grew up in, and please tell us how your childhood contributed to what you are doing as a profession right now.
Well, so I was born and raised here in Ottawa. But every time like I came home, we only spoke Tagalog. So like I grew up in the Filipino culture. If like my parents were working, like I'd go to my cousin's house and there'd be like, 4 to 8 of us in like this one apartment or one house. So technically I am an only child, but I consider these cousins of mine siblings. I mean, they're with me from day one. So I mean, the Filipino culture has always just been part of me. It's probably the greatest factor of me and how it has the most influential impact on my own work. Um, you know, Being a Filipino, I think like growing up, I was always just like into the arts and everything like that. Specifically like dance by the end of like high school and everything. That was kind of when like, the Jabberwockies were like the biggest thing. And,
Yeah.
so many Filipinos and even non-Filipinos were like, that was so fired to, for street dancers to be highlighted on on a stage like that. That definitely influenced me to, try other things. So that dance pathway kind of led to me picking up a camera, kind of by accident, but like, by using it and, trying different forms of art. Started off with playing piano when I was like 6. That was just something I was enrolled in. But I mean, I love it. I mean, it taught me musicality, and everything like that. But I would say dance would probably have the most
What
influential
what
impact.
what type of music do you play on the piano?
Well, at first I had to do the whole Royal Conservatory music. It was all classical, Beethoven, Bach, all these sonatas and everything, like things I didn't really enjoy, but I had to do. Even with like theory and everything. But like now it's kind of just, you either learn a song by ear or you just download sheet music from the internet and just learn for the sake of, wanting to learn something.
Yeah, you mentioned about all these classical artists like Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Caravaggio. So, and well, I should say this candidly. Okay, not many Filipino, especially the young generation, they're not really into Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Caravaggio, Goya. They're not really into that. So, how did you get exposed to this classical music? And you just mentioned to us that you're into,
Mhm.
classical music.
Um, well, for like classical artists growing up, I don't want to say like when I was younger, like, oh, I would look at Da Vinci paintings. I didn't. That wasn't until like later on in college because it was one of my classes was like art history, and visual perception. And, it was kind of like the assignments that were given to us was like pick a painting, from this list or like a name out of a hat, and you would just have to go through it. After learning that, I would still like research certain artists or paintings
Mhm.
after the class and, kind of study different techniques and lighting techniques in which ways I could, implement it into my own work. And like right now beside me is this like giant book of like every painting in the Louvre. And it's just, for me to study. Like no one told me to go study it. I'm just genuinely interested to see, how other artists work and if I can somehow, bring that into my own work. Whether it be the poses they do, which, you see in a lot of music videos and shoots itself, is they'll bring in, references like that or different lighting techniques. Um, I think Rembrandt when I was in college was probably the most impactful because it's technically a lighting style that portrait photographers use. It's one of like the most difficult lighting styles to master. Um, but I would say Goya, I think, would be the most influential. Specifically, a painting where it's like Saturn devouring his child, and it's just like a darker painting, but essentially it's just the overall tones in that painting are still fully embedded in all my photos somehow. Maybe not, as drastic sometimes, but it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and before we got into the technical side of your work, could you kindly tell us how you ended up being a photographer?
Yeah, it was actually kind of like by accident almost. So what happened was it was like a Boxing Day, and me and my dad were at home. My mom was at work, and he was like, "Do you want to go to Best Buy?" Because usually on Boxing Day we'd go in the mornings to see what the deals were and everything. But that Boxing Day specifically, we just didn't go in the morning, and we went there, and he was just like, I've always wanted one of these cameras, and I was like, "Why? You're not gonna use that." He's like, "No, it's just like I just want to get it." I was like, "Okay, cool." He buys the camera, and then he asked me to set it up for him, and I was like, "Okay." I knew there was a twist to this. Like it was too easy. So then I ended up setting it like the camera up, and I was just taking pictures, like trying to figure out settings, and I don't know, something about the shutters and everything felt, I don't know, therapeutic, if you will. And yeah, after that, it was just like I brought the camera with me everywhere, dance studio, high school. I would start asking my friends to go do shoots here and there. Um, but after that is kind of just like when would start to become a photographer. I would say when I took it more serious in college.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think everything before that was just for fun, was just experimenting. But I would say like that, accidental like going to Best Buy to pick up a camera, I thought he would never use, I would end up using, and he never got that camera back.
And what did your parents think about that?
Going to photography?
Yeah, is that what your parents would like you to pursue when you were growing up?
Absolutely not. I was supposed to, I don't know, like, the typical Filipino thing is like when you're in high school, it's like you're supposed to go to university after, not college. It's university or nothing. If you don't get into university, you're not gonna have a successful life, and like the successful life of having a big house, the nice cars, and all this money. But the Filipino course was like, oh, you're supposed to be a nurse at some point, and I just was like, in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was kind of just like, all right, fine. Like I guess I could be a nurse. I don't know. And then, gradually towards the end of high school, it was kind of like, nah, I don't think this is it for me. And then I kind of, was like starting to think like, okay, what do I actually like to do? And I was like, well, I generally like helping people and talking and conversing with individuals. So that kind of shifted more into, wanting to be a therapist. Um, so I went into psych at Carleton. And the first year I was kind of like, I don't think this is it for me either. Like this program specifically. So then I was like, okay, like what can I do in university, but enjoy more? So then I switched programs to interactive multimedia and design, which was, in the pamphlet or the booklet, it said it was like photography, videography, coding, animation, like everything put together. It was like a split program where you'd have classes at Algonquin and then some at Carleton. But as that semester would go on, it was just like it was all coding, and I would ask like the fourth years like, what is the final project? And they're like, oh, you have to like design a video game, and I was like, I didn't sign up for a video game, like course. So then ultimately I dropped out of university, and I didn't tell my parents that I dropped out of university like on the spot. The way they found out was essentially they would get like mail from Algonquin, but not like little envelopes. I'm talking like the full admission, like with books and everything inside it. So then they'd be like, why do you keep getting mail from Algonquin? And I was like, all right, well, I can't put this off anymore. And I like vividly remember this day. I just like went in the kitchen. I was like, listen, I dropped out of university. And honestly, like all hell broke loose. And like I understood they had every right to be, mad and upset and everything. Um, but I think I had the same equal right, if not greater, to make this decision because it was for myself. It was just like, what I wanted to do. And, I took that photography route to Algonquin, and then everything just kind of started rolling, and my mindset started changing after that.
Yeah. So
where did you find the courage to kind of change your path when you decided I'm dropping out?
I don't
What was
think
the turning point for you?
I think the turning point is like when my only option was to make that decision.
Right.
Like I had nothing else. It was just like, at the time I was still dancing, and I like even did like an extra year of dance, like competing. But like even when I was at the studio or on stage, like everybody could see it. Like I was just not enjoying it. And usually like the studio is just like I'm a different person in there. Like the energy is great. Um, but I think it was just like at one point it was just like, all right, this is not it. Started missing class, well, more class, wouldn't even go to campus. I wouldn't submit things. I would just no show. Um, I think it was until it was like my only option was like, all right, what do you like to do? And I was like, at the point, I was like, I kind of like taking pictures. And I was like, you have to come to this realization and acceptance that what you're about to do is going to completely change everything moving forward. So, for myself moving forward, I had to accept that I'm not going to have a Monday to Friday 9 to 5. I'm not going to have a backup plan. I'm not going to have, the same like, salary job type thing. I'm going to be the struggling artist. I have to go through the struggling artist phase to get to where I want to be. So it took time to, reflect a lot on what I was going to do. But ultimately I did accept that and I took on the challenge. And yeah, I just made that decision.
Yeah, so there's no regret from your
No,
side.
not at all. And like, honestly, like the day I made the decision to drop out, I think was one of like the happiest days of my life. Like, I
Wow.
felt such a weight
Mhm.
like lift off my shoulders. I was like, wow, I really don't have to come to Carleton anymore. I don't have to sit through lectures with like 400 other kids that I don't care about. I don't have to go to like a discussion group that's only worth like 10% of your final mark. Like, I don't care.
Mhm.
It felt good. The only thing was, when I had applied for Algonquin, I was like, 4 months past due the application date. and
Right.
I had to like submit a portfolio and everything. I was like, okay, like maybe I'm gonna have to, wait out this year and then reapply. I like
Mhm.
submitted one anyway and they accepted it. And I was like, okay, cool. So then, I started the September after.
The things that you went through before your decision to really become a photographer. You were in the psychology course in college or in university, right?
Mhm.
And you're a dancer as well. So, do you think this experiences, past experiences that you, especially the psychology training that you
Mhm.
had, did it contribute to your craft? Because in the photos that you were sharing to us, you're trying to draw out the character of the subject that you are shooting. So how did it come into play?
I think there's a lot of parallels between the two, between, you know, photography and psychology from my point of view anyway. Um, in a sense, I have to create this safe space because a lot of the individuals I work with, this is like their first time. So, they've never done a shoot, they've never been on camera. Sometimes if there's studio lights and like a stylist, a makeup artist, it gets, intimidating.
Mhm.
So, I have to create a conversation and I have to get to know them. They have to get to know me. I'm like an open book with them. I just, creating the safe space and allowing them to like feel free and like feel like themselves. Continuing on, like even after the shoot, I think past the conversation, you never know what will come out of a shoot. It could be, new friendships, it could be a returning client, it could be for networking, it could lead to other paths. So in some ways it's a form of therapy. For me anyways, it's therapeutic for the most part, but I think it's just the overall atmosphere and conversations I have with individuals is, I'd like to think I'm welcoming and, easy to talk to.
And as a young Filipino Canadian, what do you think makes you different from other photographers here in Canada or in Ottawa?
My perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it's different. Everyone's perspective is different. It's, you know, the influences I've had from my culture being Filipino to the movies I watch to the trauma I've endured to the goals I have envisioned ahead of me. I think people have similarities in what they're inspired by, or, there's times where it's the same as other individuals, but how you perceive it is completely different from one another. So I would say just my perspective and on certain subjects.
We're talking about because our series is actually on business, right?
Mhm.
And if you're an artist in the business, so what exactly are you aiming for? Are you aiming for, how you interpret a, say, a subject matter, or are you fulfilling whatever the demand is from your client? So how do you balance this two?
Um, by not limiting myself, really, it's just accepting what I can and what feels right. There are, jobs that I turn down, just because I don't feel right. I don't like the conditions or how it's going to pan out. And sometimes I just don't like the general approach. But I think, mostly I would like to do more creative portraiture, for editorials. But, times like today, I would have to adjust and do more commercial work for restaurants and real estate, just because it's more in demand at the time, and it's just more, available. There's more jobs because everything had closed down and people had to adjust and kind of shifted everything to online marketing. So then that's when I would come in. But if I could truly be honest, I would just love to focus more on portraiture and, an individual in front of me and whatever their story or narrative is.
Yeah, there are, you sent some photos to us and we are showing actually some of them on screen. Can you tell us more about these photos? Tell us what your about your style, about the the topic that you're trying to depict. Uh, this is like your movie still, right? So yeah, just tell us about it. How do you do it?
This one was inspired by just like French film in general. I remember speaking with her, like sending her inspo. It was just like, the heavily high contrast, the beret, the shadow play, really encouraging the chiaroscuro overall in the image and the impact it has. And, when you see a cigarette in a photo, it adds a certain layer or texture, if you will, that, sometimes it's like you feel like it's missing something. But I mean, like, this is actually like a 3-part series, but the first photo, like, prior to it, she's like, there's a quote says, you need to leave, you need to leave. And these words that, like, when I use these movie stills, are actually written by my cousin who's a poet. So I, will draw inspiration from her own work too. And, if I see something there and then I see like this Parisian film, it's like, okay, there's something there, but like, what is it? And, came up with this was actually technically like a break from the photo shoot. Like, she was just having a smoke. This wasn't technically part of it. And then we ended up shooting a bunch of it. The sun was moving in a certain way that I just couldn't stop. And we did, like, the rest of the day, we just sat on this staircase in the alleyway and, we came up with this.
Yeah, so it's just a part of the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this one?
These ones again are just like, the one on the right, again, that's poetry written by my cousin. The one on the left is, are we ever truly free? That was just, a mood I was in that day. Now, I spoke with Tara before. She's the girl, the woman sitting in front of the TVs, about this, art installation at the Ottawa Art Gallery, and I wanted to do something with it. And we took a bunch of pictures, but it was kind of just like, the pictures are there, but sometimes you just create things right out the gate with no plan, which is fine. I think that's important for any artist, is to just create for the sake of creating something. And then over time, you revisit the photos and, something might hit different, whether it be the composition, the lighting, or the message you're trying to portray. And, I just came up with this, like, are we ever truly free? And it's like, free from what? But it's like, free from anything, like free from suffering, free from being fatigued. Cause, often people say, I'm tired. Everyone's always tired, but like, are we ever truly free? But then what does free even really mean at this point? So I think it just leaves this, like, open-ended question for you to take and answer in your own way, just because your perspective on this question might be different from the next person next to you.
So why the television in this label? I mean, in this photo?
Television, just because, you sit in front of it and you're like mind control, right? Could be shows, could be news, could be movies. There's lots of things that happen on TVs, right? So it's just always like a brainwash thing. And seeing the installation of like I don't know if the installation's still there, but it's just like a stack of TVs. And like, there's actually like a security wire that surrounds it, but I had to Photoshop that out from the photo. But yeah, I think it just fit appropriately to what we came up with.
Is there a market for this type of photo?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, I think these movies still photos, though, I think are more for myself. I think they're more to feed my soul, to go do other work, to do more commercial and editorial work. I think this is just, me experimenting, me playing around with it. And like I said, like, I might not necessarily have the right subtitle, quote, or poem in mind, or mood, or how I'd like for the photo to be perceived, like right when I take the photo. Could be, you know, a couple days after, it could be a week, could be a month, could be months, could be even a year, but you know, eventually something will hit. I think it's just important for any artist to just keep creating.
Yeah, that's right. And then please, Yoni, tell us, how did you change your strategy when pandemic hit all of us?
When the pandemic hit, I mean, I lost everything. I lost
Mhm.
every contract I had. Some were put on hold just because they were able to, but you know, some being international, they had to cut ties and they had to move forward with the campaign somehow, just as they would adapt, which is what I had to do. I had to adapt to. You know, being here, couldn't do the regular editorial, you know, shoots anymore where I'd have, you know, a ton of makeup artists, a hairstylist, multiple models, stylists, assistants, first assistants, digital technicians all around me. It was just like, well, we can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
So I
How
would have
many how many people in your team before the pandemic?
minimum 6.
Wow, yeah. And then
And
you
like, it's like there was, you know, prior to the pandemic, there's no social distancing. It's like stylists running right by you, like hair and makeup, like running over each other, trying to fix things, or like, you know, a stylist might bring in an assistant or two. I would have like a digital technician right next to me going over the laptop. So it's, yeah, I had to make that adjustment. But then, you know, not having any jobs, I was like, well, I don't think anyone's really looking for, you know, portraiture right now. It's like, what can I do? And like, I worked on a project with Preston Street where I shot all this food. I think it was like 8, 9, 10 restaurants. And I was like, okay, like I've done food commercial work. Well, let's see what's out there. And then, you know, restaurants started reaching out like, okay, we have to switch this menu to online menu. So, you know, it's they'd have new items, um, you know, going out, or the presentations and everything would be different. So I switched to food photography, you know, for commercial work just to get some source of income. I mean, like, I love doing it. It's peaceful because there's no one around me. It's me, and there's a chef in the kitchen in the back, and I'm usually at the front of the restaurant. So I get to work by myself. And then even with real estate, you know, I would just go and take pictures of property. I mean, the agent would come in, unlock the door, leave me be for like an hour, hour and a half, and then come back, lock up, and that was that. So I mean, I was still able to get some work. It not, you know, might not be what I'm known for or something I specialize in, but I mean, I had to adapt somehow to keep myself busy, to, you know, get some source of income.
Yeah, that's right, Yoni. And then during the pre-interview, you actually mentioned a some sort of a technology that you were tinkering even before the pandemic hit.
Mhm.
And then during COVID-19 restrictions, you were able to use that in your portrait projects, right?
Mhm.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, that's FaceTime. I
Yeah.
think it's such a like, you know, weird concept that I'm still trying to grasp, that you could be with someone on the other side of the world in live time without, you know, being in the same room as them. So this, like doing FaceTime shoots at the beginning of the first quarantine, it was always just like an idea that I always played around with. Like if I know there's a camera, it means somehow I can capture something. I think the only reason I was more hesitant to pursue it was because I'm so used to like the clarity and sharpness of, you know, actual cameras, right? Compared to the screenshot that I do with FaceTime. So, you know, I had asked one of my closer friends like to experiment. I was like, we're gonna do, like, do you want to do this FaceTime shoot? She was down, and then I was like, listen, you can't have any expectations out of this. Like, I don't know if this is gonna look good or how this is gonna turn out, but we tried it. Um, and it took a few tries, but I mean, like, eventually I got down this kind of pattern slash layout slash workflow that kind of worked for me, where the photos looked pretty good. And it got to a point where people, you know, were like hitting me up, were like, that was over FaceTime. Like they were saying how like their selfies don't even look that clear. But it was just, you know, something to do. And with FaceTime, I mean, I was able to connect with anybody in the world. like
Yeah,
that.
that one, that photo that you're looking at right now,
Yeah,
that, yeah, okay.
yeah.
Wow,
So like the first girl, the previous girl, the black and white one, she's in Slovakia.
mhm.
The next girl in the next layout, this is she's in Paris. Um, it was cool because it's like I could do 3 of these in a day, and they'd be all different cities. So if I woke up early, I could work with someone in England, like the UK. By like mid afternoon here, I'd work with someone from Toronto. Then later here in Ottawa, I could work with someone from LA. So there was like endless possibilities and opportunities to create with people. People all these people are people I've met or have created with, or I'm going to create with one day in person. So I think it's just you know crazy that I could quote unquote time travel to different parts of the world at different times just to communicate with them, rekindle anything. Like the girl on the left, she's from the UK, and then the girl on the right, she's from here in Ottawa.
Yeah, that's right. That's pretty amazing. Because for ordinary folks like me, a photographer is somebody where, shooting the photos with you, right? But
Yeah,
you're
like
able to, yeah,
I
good.
mean, like FaceTime shoots had their own challenges because like I can't control the camera. I can't control perspective, where you're putting it. You had to like make it work somehow. Like um I can't, simply move a camera up and down. I have to tell you where to put it. But at the same time, I didn't want to like direct too much because I feel like I would stress out the person. But like I had people like the girl in the UK, like her phone is on like a suction cup on her window that's open. So it's like
Mhm.
leaning over, she's on like the second floor. So I'm like, you're really
And that's
risking,
natural lighting. That's
yeah,
natural lighting. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So I'm like, you're really risking your phone right now for this. And she was like, yeah, why not? And then, the girl on the right, she had like, what does she have? Her tablet with like with a paper towel roll on the flashlight to get the circle,
Mhm.
the highlight. And it was I think she saw it on like TikTok or something.
TikTok, yeah.
And then yeah, that was literally shot like in her bathroom at like 11 at night, just like
Amazing.
Oh, no.
did her whole
Was
makeup
that
thing.
your idea? Those paper towel holes?
She mentioned she saw something on TikTok, and I was just like rolling with it because I was like, I don't even know what we're shooting, but I was like, it could look cool. And then we came up with this.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that's good.
Yoni, have you ever had an exhibit of your work
Yeah.
anywhere in Ottawa?
I did my first one first year of college or second
Mhm.
year. I got signed to this agency from LA, and we did an exhibition downtown.
Mm.
That was my first one. Although, like looking back on it, you're kind of just like cringing at the work that you posted, and you're like, wow, like you guys really came to my exhibition with work like that. I was like, all right. Um, I did that one. I was going to do a much bigger one,
Mhm.
uh, but then the pandemic hit, so it's on hold for the time being.
Okay.
Which is fine because now I'm kind of trying new things and trying new mediums, and you know I want to create like the best visual experience possible when things are safer, but it just
Right.
gives me more time and opportunity to properly figure things out.
Yeah, you mentioned about this best visual experience. So, what exactly are you looking for in a perfect photograph?
Honestly, I don't think any of my photos are perfect, and I think that's just us being our worst critics. Um, there's always something I'm gonna look at that I'm like, I could have done this so much better. It could have been posing, styling, lighting, moving the light like half, like 6 inches forward or back, or using a different diffuser. Um, I don't know. I think it's if the photo somehow gets like an emotional response from you, then it's like, all right, it did its thing. Um, but a perfect photo, honestly, I can't even imagine what a perfect photo is right now. I think there's so many things. that I'm
I'm
still
just
kind of working
wondering,
on.
do you have anybody in mind that you think whose comments are criticisms of your work you most respect? I mean, somebody that whose comments you respect.
Um, yeah, I mean, all my family and closest friends, they
Mm-hmm.
always comment. I appreciate the love. Like they always, will gas me up. They'll share it. They'll say this and that, and it's kind of like,
Mhm.
sometimes you're like, nah, you're supposed to say that though, right? And it's just like, I mean, I appreciate it. I'm always grateful for it, but it's just like, for me, like on a technical point, I don't just see a photo, right? Because the entire experience of this one photo that you see or that is posted, the entire experience is in my head. Because my perspective is there, right? So if I post a single photo or a set of three, people don't see the 2,000 photos, the other 2,000 photos I took that you'll never see.
Mm-hmm.
They're different angles, different lighting, different clothes, and I could revisit those photos and they might look better than what's already out there. um that's why it's just like I don't see a single photo, like I see digital layers to them, and I can dissect everything of like what I could have fixed. But I think, you know the people closest to me, like the people who always come to my exhibitions. There's probably people here in this chat right now watching. If there are, please don't tell me. That'll freak me out. But the people, who always support me, I always love them. I always appreciate them, and I'm always grateful for their words. Even when like random artists on the other side of the world or in different cities like comment or reach out, it kind of just like shocks me a little bit. I was like, first of all, I don't know how you saw my work, but thanks, and then
Mhm.
kind of build on that until you create something.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, going back to photography, because photography is almost 200 years old.
Mhm.
And for you, what do you think are the secrets of becoming a successful photographer?
Success is such a weird word because everyone's perception of it is always different. Um,
Mhm.
that I don't even know necessarily what success is to me, other than possibly like a clear horizon. But even at that point, I don't even know how to describe what my success is. Um, but I think to get you on the right track to success, I think you have to be, nonstop creating, experimenting, openly making mistakes. You have to make mistakes, and then, you know, try new things till you find something that feels right. And then when it feels right, you hone it, and you hone it until it feels like home. And I think you just have to keep trying and experimenting different things. Don't limit yourself ever. Don't box yourself in. Like tear the box up and just go do something. If someone tells you not to do something a certain way, try the other way. Like one main thing people like one of my profs told me in college, like when you take proper portraits, you should take the portraits from uh up downward. So like from a higher level looking down on your subject. And I was kind of like, at first I was like, okay, cool. But if you look at the majority of my street shots, they're shot the opposite way of what I'm told to do. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think it's just, using what you want to do, um, and just trying new things and just keep creating until you find something that you really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
have any do you draw any inspiration from photographers?
Mm-hmm.
Any photographers like
Tons.
classic ones or more contemporary photographers?
I mean, there's like a stack of books here. I don't know if you can see them, but these are like
Yeah,
majority are all photographers.
right.
Like Helmut Newton, Annie Leibovitz. I mean, Karl Lagerfeld's Little Black Jacket. I think this book actually inspired my college portfolio the most. His lighting style,
Okay.
I literally used the same camera he used. I had the same setup he used, and I was experimenting and everything. And you know, sometimes if people walked into the studio while I was shooting, sometimes they'd see like 6 lights, sometimes they'd see one light, and it's kind of there's endless possibilities. But I do draw a lot of inspo from them. specifically with their work, their connection with their subjects. I mean, they could be, you know, celebrities, or they could just be normal people, or it could be just like their partner. But I definitely draw a lot of inspo from them.
Wow, that's really amazing. Yeah, because you're able to hone this craft from many different experiences and many different inspirations, and then also your formal schooling at Algonquin College. But at this point, right, in this modern time, everyone could practically become a photographer with high resolution and fancy mobile phones and mobile applications.
Yep.
How do you keep up with the technology, and how can you make yourself apart and make yourself, make yourself known as a professional photographer and really excellent in your craft?
I think this is gonna be pretty like blunt and honest, but I feel like I don't care about the most current trends. Like I don't work on anyone else's timeline but my own pace and everything. Like I'll see when new technologies are put out, like, you know, right now it's like mirrorless cameras and everyone's switching gear to this new technology that's lighter weight, it's improved, it's sharp, it has everything these heavy cameras do, but, you know, lighter weight. But I still feel like I'm still trying to master, you know, using the SLR. And like things are moving forward in terms of technology, but I mean, like, how many people here now are like shooting back on film cameras? It's kind of like that phase never went away, and I've, you know, only more so recently discovered, you know, the feeling of shooting on film and how it's a different set of skills compared to shooting on digital, because it's not, you know, instant. Digital, you take a picture, you see the preview on the back of the screen. Film, it's like I gotta wait a couple days. I have to submit the film. I have to wait for them to, you know, process it, and then I have to get the negatives back, and I scan it in myself, or they give me the digitals. But I just think there's so many, you know, different types of cameras and technologies that I'm still trying to master or practice with, that, you know, like eventually maybe I'll go to the, you know, I'll look into mirrorless, but I just don't think I'm like, I don't know, I'm never really the one for trends of like what's hot. And everyone's like out here, you know, saying, I got the new whatever mirrorless camera. I'm like, that's fine. It doesn't bother me. I'll get to it. I'll look into it. I know what it does. I mean, I've tried it, but it's not to say that I'm going to, you know, really invest myself into like diving into it fully. But I'm aware of it. It just doesn't really, you know, appeal to me right away.
Yeah, and that kind of mindset, is that something that you are using as like your strategy in promoting your craft?
I wouldn't say it's like a strategy per se. I think it's just like who I am as an artist type thing. I mean, I mean, like if you look on my page, you don't really see my face a lot on my page. If I do, it's like it's rare. But I rather kind of just like have my work speak for itself. Like most people who email me and reach out, you know, they say like, oh, we saw your work with this, or we saw you worked with whoever, and you know, you're hiring me for what I can do. But I'm just, you know, trying to build this solid foundation more so of what I can do with what I have. Just because sometimes if you think, you know, you need the latest technology, or, you know, the latest gear, you might get into the mindset where you think your work's not good enough because of this gear. In reality, it's like, no, I could still use like a lower end camera and still create something crazy. I think it's just, you know, built into me. But in terms of it being a strategy, I don't think I like purposely do it. It's just who I am as an artist type thing.
I have a follow-up question
Mm-hmm.
to that. You did mention in one of our conversations that your best
Did Bea freeze out?
Yeah, I think she did. Yeah. And she's saying something about your best shot.
Not too sure.
Yeah, yeah, I think she's frozen. She'll.
in the back.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello.
What's up?
I'm back. Okay. No. My question was like you had mentioned in a conversation before that your best work has been produced um, usually when you're in the depths of anxiety or
Mhm.
depression or something.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that process and what's it like and why? Why do you produce the best
Yeah.
work?
Well, the initial feeling sucks. I'll tell you that. I mean, like, I can't even really describe it. I don't even know if it sucks, quote unquote. It just, I'm in this mood, whatever it feels like, and then kind of just floating there. Um, and then you start to like pick at things. But at this point in the process, like if I get to this certain, mindset or state of mind, I probably won't pick up a camera. Like, to be honest with you, like if it gets to that point, I'm not creating anything new. I will probably go into other mediums to try something new to kind of, reset. It could be, meditation. It could just be going to the, gardening in the summertime, painting, even though I'm trash at it. It could be different things. And then when you slowly get out of this, I don't know, funk for myself anyway, um, this is kind of like where all those paintings hit harder. Because a lot of the paintings and painters I mentioned earlier, whether it be Caravaggio, Goya, Da Vinci, they're all known for these like darker paintings. And I start to, connect on some type of way with it that I'm
Right.
like, okay, there's something there. I just don't know what it is yet. And then sometimes I'll see like this bright photo out of nowhere and it's like, no, 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 I don't want that. And so I'm like, kind of really shifting my mindset of like, okay, we're narrowing it down to what I want to do. And then usually, I don't know, it could be like the inspo could really come out of nowhere to create something. It could be, it doesn't like, it could come from a movie, but it doesn't have to be a whole movie. It could be like a line from a movie, um, like the movie The King with Timothy Chalamet, or I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah.
There's like one line where he's arguing with like his assistant or whatever, and he's just like remedy this failure. And it was this one line, the delivery of it and the lighting on it was so precise and clean that I was like, that's it. That's the look that I want.
Right.
With a brisk like highlight on like the offside where he created he had the Rembrandt lighting and everything like was so perfect that I was like, that's it. Like it could be as simple as that, but it could also be as simple as like me sitting in my living room and the way the sun comes through the window and hits my clothing rack. Just like because the sunlight passes through, we have a bunch of like plants like in front of the window. So when it creates these shadows and everything, and I could just stare at that for, I don't know, a long time. Like I think like 2 weeks ago or something like that, I stared at my flip flops on the ground through like our glass table because it was like showing this like refraction, and I just kept moving back and forth for like an hour, and I was like, I don't know what this is. It looks cool, but I'm gonna like photograph it. And I like kept it, and I was like, this looks cool. So it's just, it doesn't have to be like this big thing that happens that sparks something. It could be something as simple as that. But yeah, the by the end of the process, you create something, but it's, an artist being vulnerable, right? Like, isn't that one of like their strongest features? Not even just an artist, but it's like as an individual as a whole. And you kind of just pick at it. And then the thing is like if you decide to show it, you don't have to, obviously, but when you do show it, it's kind of just like not everyone's going to understand what it took to make that photo. They might just they'll take it for what it is, which is fine.
Right.
I don't expect everyone to understand the layers behind it. I think that's just more for myself, to understand my own work. And then 9 times out of 10 it doesn't get as much love as like other work, which is okay, but I think for myself it's just more meaningful, more impactful.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're indeed a true blue artist. So I'm just wondering, how do you weave the business side of things in your profession?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on, my portfolio, I guess, is like the main thing a lot of people look at is my portfolio. The clients I've started to add to the list, throughout my career, jobs that I've done. Um, you know, it's kind of just like, how much will this job take away from my soul, or how much of my soul do I have to give to do this job? And it kind of bases it on that, but it's just like, there's so many different genres of photography, right? So real estate and food and commercial, that's for other businesses, which is fine. We have weddings and like engagement photos and everything. That's for that client. That's photography and business because people want it. And it's just like the way people say, photos are worth 1,000 words. And to put into perspective, it's like photos are like this big thing, and sometimes people say photos aren't that big of a deal, like all you do is take pictures. And I was like, this quote, I don't know who said it to me, but it was just like, okay, now imagine all you had left was this one photo. And I was like, oh snap, it's that serious. Like it could be that impactful and meaningful to an individual. So incorporating business, I mean, it just has different magnitudes of meaning, the way it means to people, like how much it means to them. So yeah, that's just how I throw in business. But I mean, fashion stuff is like free game. It's just like shoot this on this certain setting. Other clients are a little more picky, which is fine. But most of the time, it's just like I'll have most of the creative direction as well.
Yeah, among the genre that you mentioned earlier, which one is your bread and butter, and
Sorry?
which one is your bread and butter among the genre that you mentioned earlier, and then which one is for your own inspiring moments or
Portraits, I think,
portrait?
in terms of genre. I love working with people. It's just like, yeah, I can shoot a hamburger, a cheeseburger, but it really just sits there. It doesn't really say anything back to me. You know what I mean? Like until after the shoot when I get to eat it, which is fine. Like I got paid, like, I did a shoot, I got fed. It's a great day, but having a conversation with someone is something completely different. It's, like I mentioned earlier, you don't know what's going to come out of that conversation, right? And obviously there's different levels of how well you get to know them or not, but I think working with people, I think it's just that'd probably be my favorite genre, if you will, and what I want to focus on, and definitely one that hits home the most.
So the portraits, who are your clients when you do portraits?
So there's like modeling agencies, you do test shoots and everything, and like fashion shoots are technically portraiture, but it's like the meaning behind it is so like you're kind of just staring at the clothes more rather than the person.
Yeah.
And from like a designer point of view, I think it's great because you get to showcase your clothes. This is what you work on. Their perspective on this is completely different from mine because I'm the photographer in this scene. But I think for me, like a series I've been working on during the pandemic was a support local series, and I could literally highlight local businesses, around the city, their store, what they do, their services they offer, and everything. And I thought that was more meaningful because I'm like, well, everyone can resonate and connect with certain figures in the city, or if you're not familiar with them, then you can start to look into their businesses and help them out. So I think me shifting my work into more focus on the portraits, focus on the eyes and not the garments they're wearing.
And in a way, that's where the conflict is, right? I mean, just looking at the portrait, the clothes versus the person in the clothes.
Don't get me wrong, I love shooting fashion still. Like I'll still do it, but it's like, I think it's just more meaningful to shift in this direction for now.
Yeah, because you wanted to shoot the character of the person,
Yeah.
the story behind the person. Yeah, yeah. So, what are your tips for aspiring young photographers out there?
Just go shoot.
Mhm.
Just go shoot, grab your camera and get out there with a
That
mask
is,
on. But just go create, go make mistakes. I think it's important to go try new things. And I don't necessarily think that anything you create or everything you have to create, one has to be perfect, but also does not have to be happy. I think it's, equally important to create something that is sad as well. And, if you create something, don't have the sole intent of just wanting to post it to share it. I don't think you have to share everything that you do. I think you should just create for yourself, most importantly. Just keep trying new things and something will feel right eventually.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because if you're going to look at photography as a business,
Mhm.
um, what are the emerging market trends that you could see right now, or probably in the next few years?
Trends?
Yeah.
Lots of commercial work here in Ottawa, to be honest with you. But
Mhm.
I mean, like real estate's booming right now in terms of business. So I mean, you can always do that, and restaurants always switching, you know, different menus from takeout menus to dining in because they open close. But like the service you get when you're dining in, the presentation of the food is different versus when you get it home, right? So you always got to switch it. You got to throw new menus in there, throw new cocktails in there. The presentation, you have to sell it to the person. Um, Commercial, yeah, but I think like I mentioned earlier, I don't really care for trends. I'm just gonna do me and just gonna keep shooting portraits and focus on the people and their stories.
What do you think about photojournalism?
I thought about it. I really thought about that and um, imagery technicians like for the armed forces,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily like for their propaganda campaign type things or like taking pictures of helicopters, but like there's a certain section where you can take photos or like I don't say
Like,
on missions and stuff, but I mean like sometimes I think like if I converse with one of my friends, like she works for the UN under counterterrorism section, like obviously I don't have clearance, like she won't say anything outside of her clearance, but it's just like sometimes I think my work is not enough, that I could do more with this, which is why it's the initial shift between fashion and someone's story, because it's like, okay, do I care about this garment that's going to last 2-3 months? It'll switch, it'll rotate, it'll change again, and then something else comes in like spring summer 21 and then fall winter. It's always changing. As where the person, it's like there's so much more to it than like it's going to last more than 3-4 months, whether it be like their story, their history, what they've been through, what they're going through presently, and what they'd like to do in the future.
yeah, that's right. And there are a lot of human interest stories in military, right?
Yeah,
Rescue
it's not
operations.
something I've I guess accepted that I want to do yet, but it's not something I've cut out completely. Who knows? Maybe I'll like do that in like a month. I don't even know what I'm going to be doing, so it could technically happen. I don't know yet.
Yeah. I have a question from the audience.
Oh, we got the audience in here. What's up, y'all? Thank you for
Okay.
watching.
Do you have a team of photographers working with you? How do you market yourself, or do people find you?
Do I have a team? I currently do not have a team because of the pandemic. However, prior to the pandemic, there are certain individuals I would hire as assistants, and it's usually the same team, same assistants, same people I've, had from college. Just because, I mean, I worked with them for 2 years in studio. That we built this chemistry. We just understand. Well, one, they have the studio experience. Two, they know how I work, and any expectations. So it's, you know, I would have a team. I just don't have a team right now. In terms of marketing, Instagram, word of mouth, people sharing my work. I think it's such a simple term like Instagram, but it's crazy that someone on the other side of the world could see your work and then recognize you. If you ever meet in person. So marketing, I don't know. I kind of just let my work out in the world and see what it does.
You know what? It's already 6:29 in my clock, and we could talk hours and hours with Yoni on photography.
Wow.
How time flies! It's
I
already.
know. I was like, what time is it?
And thank you, Yoni, for sharing your inspiring story,
Thank you
your
for having me.
philosophical thoughts about your craft, and the practical things that you applied in your profession during COVID-19 are gleaming examples of Filipino resilience. And it doesn't matter where you were born or grew up in. It's in our DNA. Resilience is in the Filipino DNA. And I'm sure a lot of young kababayans out there are inspired by you.
I
So,
hope so.
Yoni, do you have some concluding words for young Filipino Canadians who are tuning in?
Well, one, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for not telling me that you were tuning in because it would really freak me out. Concluding words. I'm gonna go with, I don't know, just keep creating. I think it's like the job of any artist is to, interpret the era and somehow reframe the present, right? And kind of make the familiar seem unusual and different and change the perspective of it. So, you know, I think that's just the job of any artist, and to, create something from an idea. Don't leave an idea as an idea. That's just torture. Create something with it. I think that's just the final job of any artist. After you navigate through all those other points, the ultimate goal is to create something. So, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, and Yoni, you could even publish a coffee table book. I mean, you have a
That's
word,
there.
you're very philosophical, you've got wonderful works. I think these are good materials for a book.
I don't know about writing. I'm gonna need like a PR manager for that. But in terms of like photography, I mean that's something I'm definitely working on, and it'll happen. My book will be on top of these books later.
Yes, we
It'll
will
be
look
there.
forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Yoni. And for our listeners out there, let me remind you that we have two more live stream events tomorrow and on Monday, February 22nd. For the event tomorrow, let me turn over the floor to Bea for the announcement. Bea, over to you.
Hi, thanks for tuning in, and we are inviting you to tune in again tomorrow at 5:30, which will be our last interview for this week. And we will have Joseph Puzon, who's a fashion designer, and he worked as a human resources professional for about 10 years before switching his career into fashion design. And we're looking forward to having him.
Thank you, Bea. And then on Monday, February 22nd at 5:30 p.m., do not miss the lecture on how to find support in starting your business from the federal, provincial, and the municipal governments, including private NGOs and foundations. This will be presented by Mark Alice, a professor at Algonquin College, and we will send announcements about this event soon, so tune in. Next week, a more intensive training workshop on entrepreneurship is also lined up. If you are 18 to 40 years old, and if you're, of course, Filipino Canadian, residing in Canada, planning to start a business or having a business idea and needing support to push it to the market, then register to our business startup workshop. This training will be facilitated by Renji Butalid, a Filipino-Canadian entrepreneur and startup ecosystem builder. It will be held on February 23rd, 25th, March 2nd, and 4th at 4 to 7:30 p.m. This event will not be live streamed and slots are limited, so I encourage you to register at lu.ma/pcc-entrepreneurship. And you could see the link on your screen as well. Oh, Bea, did you show the link, the e-poster of Renji, so that people could see the link that I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, please do. Yes, so that's our e-poster for the upcoming event next week. So the link is there. Now it is time to thank our sponsors. This program is made possible by the generous support from our donors, the Canadian Red Cross, and the Employment and Social Development Canada. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Tune in again tomorrow at 5:30 p.m., either by Zoom or Facebook. And bye for now, and enjoy your evening. Thank you.